I want to start with something you've spoken about in the recent past, which is the growth forecast of India, the GDP. You talked about it being 7%, which is on the high end amongst your peers. Give us a sense of why that's the case and what are the riders that it depends on.
Yeah, just next week we are going to get the September GDP data, and my sense is that's going to be close to about 7.5%. It's got a little bit of the GST cut boost, the fact that we announced it around the middle of August, although it was applicable only from 22nd September. But a lot of manufacturers started manufacturing very quickly, and that is something which our PMI monthly data has picked up. So I think the September data will be strong, and then when we move to the December GDP, I think that again will be very strong, because when we look at all the retail spending, retail demand in October, that's quite strong. So my sense is we're in a good way this calendar year, and my sense is over the next 2 quarters we'll probably see GDP growth between 7-7.5%.
Any riders that it depends on?
Okay, sure. There's always a rider out there. I think when we get to the March quarter, then things could soften a little bit. And the reason is that a lot of this consumer exuberance that we're seeing on the back of the GST rate cuts could subside by then, especially since the Diwali momentum is behind us. Yeah. And also the government finances. Tax revenues for the government haven't been good. If you do a GST cut, the consumer benefits, but the government has to pay a price because of lower tax revenues. And the government has also spent a lot upfront in this fiscal year. So there's a lot less spending room left for the March quarter. And my sense is for a government which wants to balance its budget, which is a good thing, they'll have to cut back on expenditure, and that will hurt growth a little bit. But, we can come to it. There can be offsets then as well. And one big offset would be if by then we have a US-India trade deal. Yeah,
I want to talk to you about that, because you just heard President Trump announcing just late Friday a particular relief. In domestic political concerns, it's basically about affordability and the pressure that's coming from the Democrats, right? But when it comes to India, it could actually benefit our farmers. Now, analysts are kind of divided around that. I just want to understand how much is really dependent on just the fact that this could impact farmers relative to what you're seeing in terms of domestic reforms. Because in your head, I know this for sure, that you put a lot of confidence in the government coming up with more domestic reforms.
Well, yes, I do. I do think that the US-India trade deal, we are sort of close to the finish line. Of course, all my views are based on what I read around me, and the general sense I get is that the bureaucrats have done their job, and a lot of the details have been thrashed out. For example, my sense is from news articles that India has opened up its non-food agricultural sector to US imports, and we can see in the data that the purchase of Russian oil has fallen dramatically from about 30% in the start of the year to about 5% in November so far.
And likely to fall more, yeah.
Yeah, and I think all of this gives a signal that the negotiations are in a very advanced state, and I think at this point it's up to the the two leaders to sort of thrash out the final results. I want to just say one thing quickly and connect this back to markets. I think markets in a way have partly priced in tariffs falling from 50% to close to about 25%. Yeah. So for markets to really positively react, my sense is we'll have to see a tariff rate which is closer to about 15 to 20%. But we'll see when that happens. Of course, there's no final date in our mind.
I just want to ask you this, because is there anything that makes you think, well, all this optimism, positivity that we're hearing President Trump saying in the White House, we're pretty close to a deal. This has been said before. Is there anything that gives you pause when it comes to the fact that, hey, this may not even happen?
Well, that's always there, right? Because we've seen that in many countries that, things go up and down and there are dramatic shifts completely unexpected. So, there's always like room for a big surprise out there. But I would say compared to the last couple of months, I think in terms of the bureaucrats negotiating a trade deal, we are the closest we've been in the past.